LMGs are really hard to balance. It's been a long time since I've done a virtuality versus reality video. And as the general public, at least I feel, has a good understanding of how assault rifles and snipers work, the previously covered pistols and shotguns and the now LMGs are kind of a little bit more obscure, and nowhere does this show better than in video games. LMGs were invented as a concept towards the end of the 1800s. I believe the first one was formally produced in 1902 and was the Madston machine gun, which had a magazine-fed system that inserted through the top, unlike what we see most times today. We see it go in through the bottom. But yeah, this LMG fed through the top, it was magazine-fed, and it was a portable version of heavier machine guns. LMG stands for light machine gun, as up until that point, the idea of a machine gun was this giant kind of mounted turret. So LMGs were among the first weapons to actually take that design and put it into a package that could be carried around by one or two people. Sometimes you'll see LMGs being referred to as squad automatic weapons. A squad automatic weapon is designed to use the same ammunition as most squad mates are carrying, and it's designed to play a supporting role within a squad. It's a gun that's designed to be able to keep up an output of firing constantly without having to worry about the barrel wearing down as quickly as an assault rifle would, because when you fire weapons, they get hot. When you fire them automatically, they get very hot. So an LMG, or at least a squad automatic weapon, is designed to be able to heat up and still keep firing through tons and tons of ammunition. Now, there's two ways that these guns usually come in the form of. We already talked a little bit about magazine-fed LMGs, but they can also come in the form of a belt-fed. A belt-fed is exactly what it sounds like. It has a string of bullets attached through a belt that you feed through the gun, and that's the way it cycles. It fires a bullet, spits out the part of the belt it doesn't need, and the belt continues to feed into the gun as it's firing. Now, belt-fed weapons can be carried in a lot of ways, and that belt of bullets can be put into a drum, it can be put into a box, it can be put into a sack, or it could be carried around by a guy helping you fire the weapon. You'll see in a lot of old World War II photos, two guys using an LMG, and one of them is just holding the belt so that it can feed into the gun without snagging on anything. LMGs are typically heavier and harder to use than assault rifles. You get a lot more recoil because of that sustained fire, and it's much heavier because it's built with sturdier materials that are supposed to survive said sustained fire. In video games, LMGs usually equate to one of two things: completely unusable recoil beasts that are so niche that they're not even worth it, or just really angry assault rifles or SMGs. A good example of this would be the SAW in Halo 4, which just acts like an angrier version of the assault rifle, or the Spitfire in Titanfall 2, which acts as a, again, angry version of an assault rifle that comes with a shit ton of ammo. Of course, both of these are sci-fi settings, and you can do whatever you want, and you're playing as super soldiers in both of them, so the heavy recoil of an LMG probably wouldn't count in the future with all that. But if you're really trying to communicate what type of gun this is, there are certain things you can do to make this apparent. Even in some games where it isn't necessarily sci-fi like Metal Gear, LMGs kind of seem like repetitive type of weapons. Nowhere is this worse than in Metal Gear Solid 5, where the LMG category of weapons just acts as stronger assault rifles for your enemies to use, but it's just really useless and recoil heavy in your hands. Basically, the goal with putting an LMG into a video game is to create a niche kind of power weapon, something that you need to use a little more specifically than an SMG, assault rifle, or DMR, but really works in the role that it's given. And I can't think of a better example of this kind of portrayal than in Insurgency Sandstorm. Now, Insurgency Sandstorm is a game where you and a group of squad mates need to cooperate to survive different modes together. There's modes where you need to fend off enemies from an outpost, modes where you need to go in and breach said outposts, and a whole bunch of gimmicky modes as well. There are a lot of roles that you can fulfill within a squad. Today we're going to be talking about the gunner role. Remember what we were talking about with squad automatic weapon? In Insurgency, you get to play as the guy in charge of handling that LMG. There's many good examples of LMGs in this game, but today we're just going to take two of them so we can have an example of a magazine-fed LMG and a belt-fed LMG. The first one we're going to talk about is the magazine-fed LMG, and that is the Galil ARM, which stands for Automatic Rifle Machine Gun, which is a little redundant, but hey, the Israelis can name shit whatever they want. Now, you might be used to seeing the Galil show up in Call of Duty as an assault rifle. It does have assault rifle variants, and they're actually here in Insurgency as well with the Galil SAR. It's wrongly labeled as an LMG, but yeah, it's still here, so I guess some kind of points. But yeah, the Galil SAR is more the type of Galil you're used to seeing. However, the Galil ARM actually did show up in the original Black Ops. On that note, if you're a subscriber that's been around here long enough to remember when I used to do Pliskin's Picks back in 2020 and I did an episode on the Galil, used copyrighted music but didn't get struck down because I was too small of a channel for YouTube to give a shit. If you remember that, go ahead and leave a comment down below. It's been one hell of a ride to get to this point, and if you guys have been around that long, thank you. But yeah, the Galil ARM that we see in this game here is meant to be used as a squad automatic weapon. You have a little bit more versatility and can rock this thing kind of like an assault rifle, but if you're smart with the attachments you put onto this, you could turn this into a deadly hallway or room controlling weapon. You're kind of incentivized, even though again you can use this as more as an assault rifle with that SAR variant. You're incentivized as a gunner though, in order to support your team, to put a drum mag on this thing and really take advantage of the bipod. Bipods were used in many weapons back in the day. Today we mostly see them used with LMGs and sniper rifles. They allow you to have total stability while going prone. So while you're dealing with the harsh recoil of an LMG, mounting it somewhere, whether you're prone or leaning it on something else with that bipod, helps you control a lot of that recoil and makes it a viable weapon. And Insurgency really shows that. So I can take my Galil, put a drum mag in it, put out that bipod, and if I lie down, whatever area I'm overlooking, I can cover it. This brings us over to the belt-fed, which in today's case we're going to be going over the M240 Bravo, which is a 308 belt-fed LMG. This gun here acts much in the same way as the Galil, with having to use that bipod in order to get that maximum stability during automatic fire. However, unlike the Galil and unlike a lot of magazine-fed LMGs, trying to pick this thing up and use it in a more versatile way isn't gonna work. It's too heavy, it's too cumbersome, and you're going to feel too much of that recoil. And that has a lot to do with the fact that the belt-fed system is very different than the magazine-fed system. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty details because I doubt you really care, but the point of the matter is it adds a lot more weight, and the gun's going to be moving around a lot more when you're firing it. So with this one here, you definitely get a lot more ammo, you get a much higher fire rate and can completely wipe an entire enemy squadron if you have this mounted upright, but the drawback is you're going to move really slow, and if you try to use this without the bipod, you're probably not going to hit much. So if you are moving around, you should probably go prone. And again, this is how LMGs should be balanced, a niche kind of playstyle to use it as a power weapon. What you don't want is Far Cry 4's MG42, where you just run around the map with a total freaking death machine and no penalties to your movement or recoil whatsoever. So with that in mind, insurgency kind of gets you into the mindset of thinking about the differences between belt fed and magazine fed. Do you have a squad that's dependable enough in order to be able to use a belt fed and stay in one area knowing that your squad mates have you covered? Or do you need something that you'll be able to pick up and go and use like a quasi assault rifle? And that right there shows the pros and cons to the magazine fed and the belt fed weapon systems, and that's really cool. I'm sure there are other examples of games that do LMGs well in this light and show their strengths and weaknesses properly. If you have one that's on your mind that I haven't brought up, please leave it down in the comments below. But yeah, I just wanted to have a little bit of a discussion between different types of LMGs, a little bit of their history, a little bit of the difference between magazine-fed weapons and belt-fed weapons, and just generally clarify the role that an LMG is supposed to take, because I play way too many games where they either have no role or they just play a very redundant role. Anyways, this has been Pliskin, over and out.
This is Solid Snake. Hey, subscribe to Pliskin Boy. God damn it.
You heard him.